The rain hadn't stopped since dawn. I stood at the glass doors, watching droplets race each other down the pane while my keycard blinked red in my hand. Somewhere inside, my career was being decided without me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. My name's Elliot. I'm 54 years old, and this is what really happened. The morning was supposed to be routine, at least on paper. The biggest client pitch of my career, a year in the making, was set for 9:30 sharp. I'd rehearsed every slide, memorized every name, anticipated every objection. My tie was straight, my shoes polished, and my mind steady until I reached my office door. The metallic click came first, sharp, deliberate. My hand froze mid-motion, key hovering over the reader. I pressed it against the panel, expecting the familiar green light. Instead, it flashed red. A small taunting beep followed, each tone echoing in the quiet hallway. I tried again. Red. Through the frosted glass I could see movement. Shadows of people passing, the familiar figure walking with a coffee in hand. Then clear as day, Melissa, my boss, strode past my desk and dropped her bag into my chair. She glanced up, met my eyes through the glass and smiled, not the friendly kind, the kind that says I'm in control here. I stepped back, scanning the hallway. No one else seemed to notice. The smell of burnt coffee drifted from the break room down the hall, faint but sharp, mixing with the industrial cleaner scent clinging to the carpet. He leaned in and said, "Locked out?" It was Tom from accounting, leaning on the doorframe across the hall. His tone was light, but there was a curious glint in his eyes. "Yeah, must be a glitch." "Tom, strange timing. Melissa's been in there since 7. Brought the big presentation folder with her." The words slid under my skin like ice water. That folder wasn't just paper and ink. It was months of work, sleepless nights, and the kind of strategy that could make or break a career. I kept my voice steady. "You see anyone else go in?" Tom shook his head, a slow, deliberate motion. "Nope, just her." I tried calling it, straight to voicemail. "Facilities?" Same story. My emails to Melissa bounced back with an automated reply. "Out of office, in meetings all day." The pitch was in less than an hour, and I was standing in the hallway like an uninvited guest. I walked toward the break room, needing a moment to think. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence, the coffee pot's burnt aroma stronger now. I leaned against the counter, staring at the warped surface where steam had once peeled away the laminate. It wasn't the first time Melissa had tried to undercut me, but it was the boldest. Last quarter, she'd accidentally omitted my name from a report I'd authored. Before that, she'd reassigned one of my projects to a junior associate without telling me. Each time I'd let it slide, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. This time was different. This time she'd taken the stage I'd built for myself and locked me outside the theater. I checked my watch. 8:52. The conference room was at the far end of the building. If Melissa planned to use my work as her own, she'd have to pass through the main hallway to get there. That gave me one advantage: visibility. I positioned myself near the water cooler, close enough to see but far enough to seem casual. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're not on the schedule anymore. Thought you should know." I scanned the hallway, searching for anyone who might have sent it. No one looked my way. The hairs on my arms rose, the way they do when a storm shifts direction. At 9:05, Melissa appeared. She was carrying my presentation folder, her nails tapping against the cover as she walked. 2 board members flanked her, laughing at something she'd said. Our eyes met again. This time she didn't smile. She looked straight through me, as if I were just another piece of office furniture. I stayed where I was, sipping water I didn't need. My mind was already moving ahead to the shared drive. The version history, the backup files I'd tucked away for moments like this. She might own the room today, but the story wasn't over. And then just as she passed, I caught it. The faint sound of paper tearing. A small slip fell from the folder to the floor. She didn't notice, neither did the board members. I stepped forward, picked it up, and saw the heading. My heading. It wasn't just my work she'd taken. It was my signature page. The slip of paper felt heavier than it should have. My name was printed in clean black ink, right under the words "Lead Strategist." It was the acknowledgement page from my presentation, the one that confirmed authorship for every key idea. I'd included it as a formality, but now it was more than that. It was evidence. I slid it into my pocket just as the conference room doors swung shut at the far end of the hall. I shook my head. No matter how many times I replayed the morning in my mind, I couldn't find a version that felt accidental. Melissa had been methodical. The early arrival, the keycard lockout, the out-of-office emails. She hadn't just cut me out. She'd erased me. The faint hum of the HVAC filled the hallway as I headed for my desk, or rather the empty corner where my desk used to feel like mine. My computer monitor was dark, the chair pushed just slightly out of alignment, as though someone had sat there only briefly. I moved the mouse. The login screen blinked to life. Access denied. Another lockout. This wasn't sloppy-eyed work. This was coordinated. My phone buzzed again, this time an email alert. It was from Laura, our junior analyst. Subject: you should see this. The attachment loaded slowly on my screen, the file name long enough to stretch past the preview window. When it finally opened, my jaw clenched. It was the final presentation deck. But the footer, the one that had always read prepared by Elliot Confidential, now read prepared by Melissa J. Confidential. Every slide had been scrubbed. Every reference to me was gone. I texted Laura back immediately. "Where did you get this?" Her reply came in seconds. Internal drive, timestamped 6:14 a.m. today. The time made my skin crawl. She hadn't just stolen my work. She'd done it before I'd even woken up. I lowered my voice. "Laura, can you meet me in the break room?" 10 minutes. Bring your laptop." She agreed. I spent those 10 minutes pacing, the smell of scorched coffee still clinging to the air. When Laura arrived, she sat across from me, sliding her laptop onto the table. She was pale, eyes darting toward the hallway like she was afraid of being seen. "Laura, she thinks I'm loyal to her. I saw her uploading the deck to her cloud account this morning. That's when I made a copy." "Why, tell me?" "Laura, because you're the one who actually built it. And because she's done this before, to 2 other people." Her voice dropped lower. "Neither of them work here anymore." I stared at the deck, the cursor blinking over the stolen credit line. I could already see the path forming in my mind, the kind that doesn't rely on shouting matches or HR complaints. The kind that leaves no fingerprints, only outcomes. "Send me the file history," I said. "Every version. And the access logs." She nodded, pulling up the records. The logs showed exactly what I'd hoped. Melissa had accessed the deck from my account, using admin override permissions. That was a violation buried deep in our company's internal policy manual, the kind of violation that didn't just get someone reprimanded, it got them escorted out by security. But evidence wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed her to present my work as her own in front of the right people, and I needed proof that she knew it wasn't hers. I glanced at the clock, 9:22. The pitch would start in 8 minutes. "Laura," I said, "can you get me into the AV control room?" Her eyes widened. "You're thinking—" I didn't answer. She didn't need me to. The AV room was tucked behind the boardroom wall, a space most employees never saw. With Laura's keycard, we slipped inside. The faint hum of equipment filled the narrow space, and the scent of dust and warm circuitry hit my nose. From here, we could see the presentation feed before it reached the main screen. I found the input channel for the boardroom projector and cued a split-screen mode. On one side would be Melissa's polished delivery. On the other, the file history Laura had pulled showing my name on every earlier version of the deck. We didn't have long. I heard Melissa's voice filtering through the thin wall, all smooth confidence and false charm. "Our strategy will secure the client's position in the market for the next decade," she was saying. Laura clicked the switch. The boardroom gasped. From our side of the wall, we couldn't see their faces, but we could hear the shift in tone, the abrupt stutter in Melissa's voice, the scrape of chairs as people leaned forward. Then a sharper sound, the CEO's voice cutting through. "Melissa, what exactly are we looking at here?" Her reply was muffled, stumbling. The CEO again, this time colder. "Why does every draft list Elliot as the author?" I felt Laura's hand grip my arm. "They know." But we both froze as the CEO's next words hit like a gavel. "Melissa, we'll finish this discussion later. Elliot, would you care to join us?" The moment my name was called, I stepped out of the AV room and into the boardroom like I belonged there. The room was still tense, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Melissa stood at the head of the table, one hand gripping the back of a chair as if it were the only thing holding her upright. She didn't blink as she said, "Elliot, I was just about to explain. CEO, save it. Let's hear from him." I set my briefcase down, took the empty seat opposite her, and flipped open my own copy of the presentation. The leather was warm under my palms, the paper edges sharp. I didn't look at Melissa. I looked at the CEO. Well, this strategy was my work, compiled over the last 12 months. Every slide, every forecast, every risk mitigation plan. The version you've just seen was modified this morning without my knowledge, and my name was removed. Melissa tried to cut in, but the CEO raised a hand. Melissa, did you access Elliot's account? She hesitated just long enough for everyone in the room to notice. I had to make some last-minute edits. I didn't think, CEO, that's not how this works. I didn't need to push further in that moment. The trap wasn't ready to spring yet. The real damage wouldn't come from this meeting. It would come later in a place where her words couldn't be spun into something else. The pitch proceeded, but the rhythm was broken. Every time Melissa tried to present a section, she stumbled over the slides. She misquoted figures, misread charts. I sat in silence, hands folded, letting the discomfort grow like a slow burn. By the time the meeting adjourned, Melissa was pale and tight-lipped. She avoided my eyes as the board members filed out. The CEO lingered just long enough to say, Elliot, my office. This afternoon. I knew what that meant. And I knew I needed to be ready. The rest of the morning was a blur of half-whispered conversations and sidelong glances from coworkers. Word travels fast in an office, especially when there's blood in the water. By noon, Laura slipped into my cubicle, her voice barely above a whisper. Laura, she's in damage control. I overheard her telling HR, you misrepresented your role on the project. Perfect, she frowned. Perfect? If she's taking it to HR, she's putting it in writing. And once it's in writing, it's on record. This was the opening I'd been waiting for, the legal angle. Our employee handbook was explicit. Knowingly making false accusations that could harm another employee's career was grounds for termination. If I could get her to double down on her lie, she'd be handing me the rope to hang her with. I told Laura to forward me any internal emails she could find about the project's authorship. Then I headed to my car, the humid summer air sticking to my shirt as I walked. My destination wasn't lunch. It was a small law office 2 blocks away. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of leather and old paper. The receptionist knew me. Her brother had been a client of mine years ago, when I consulted for his startup. She ushered me straight in to see Martin, an old friend and corporate attorney. Martin, this about work. I slid the signature page across his desk, followed by a USB drive Lara had given me. It's about theft and retaliation. He plugged in the drive, scanning through the file history logs. His eyebrows rose. She accessed your account with admin override? That's a violation of federal computer fraud statutes, not just company policy. And if she's claiming credit for your intellectual property, we might even have grounds for a civil claim. I leaned forward, the polished surface of his desk cool under my fingertips. What would you need to make this airtight? Martin, proof she knew it wasn't hers. Ideally in writing. Emails are best. I can get that. Martin sat back. Then you have her. But don't tip your hand too early. Let her think she's winning. Back at the office, I found exactly what I needed in my inbox. An email from Melissa sent to HR and CC'd to the COO, stated, Elliot contributed to this project in a minor supporting role. I took over the main strategy development early on, and the final work is mine. The timestamp, 2 hours after our boardroom confrontation. I forwarded it to my personal account, then to Martin. At 3 p.m., I stepped into the CEO's office. The space was large but sparsely decorated, the blinds half closed against the afternoon glare. He gestured for me to sit. CEO, Melissa's account of the situation doesn't match yours. But the board saw the file history. They're not happy. I can give you more than the file history. I slid my phone across his desk, the screen displaying her email. This is her written statement to HR. Compare it to the access logs, the original drafts, and my signed page. You'll see the truth. He read it slowly, his jaw tightening. This changes things. If you'd prefer to handle this internally, I'll respect that. But my attorney has advised me this may require outside action. For the first time since the morning, I saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. Leave this with me. By the time I left his office, I knew the pieces were in place. But I also knew Melissa wasn't going to go quietly. People like her don't retreat. They escalate. And sure enough, she did. At 5:17 p.m. as I was packing up to leave, I got a call from Martin. Martin, she just had someone from her personal email send you a cease and desist letter claiming you're infringing on her intellectual property. I let out a slow breath. Good. Martin chuckled. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I'm patient, and patience pays. Because what Melissa didn't realize was that sending that letter crossed another line, an external written claim that could be proven false. And the moment she hit send, the legal trap was no longer just baited, it was sprung. Stepping in, I left the office that night under a heavy sky, the clouds rolling low and gray over the city. The streetlights had already flickered on, casting a dull amber glow over the parking lot. I unlocked my car, but before I could get in, a voice called from across the asphalt. "Elliot, wait up." It was Gerald, one of the senior partners. We weren't close. In fact, most of our interactions had been limited to polite nods in the hallway and the occasional "how's it going" at company mixers. But tonight he crossed the lot with purpose. He leaned in and said, "I heard what went down today. You're not the first." I raised an eyebrow. "Not the first what?" "Gerald. Not the first person Melissa's tried to erase. 3 years ago, she took a proposal I'd spent months on, stripped my name and pitched it as her own to a major client. I didn't fight it. I should have. But seeing her try it again," he shook his head. "This time she's gone too far." I studied his face. Gerald wasn't the type to exaggerate. "Why tell me now?" "Gerald, because I still have the files. Emails. Drafts. Proof she's been doing this for years. And if you're building a case, I could use an ally," I finished. He smiled faintly. "Exactly. Back at my place, we spread the evidence across my dining table. Gerald's documentation was meticulous. Time-stamped drafts, internal memos, even an old email thread where Melissa admitted to polishing someone else's work before taking it upstairs. The pattern was clear. She'd been pulling this stunt for years, and the only reason she'd gotten away with it was because her victims had either left quietly or didn't have the stomach for a fight. I did. Over black coffee and the hum of my refrigerator, Gerald and I pieced together a timeline that stretched back nearly a decade. 5 separate incidents. 5 careers damaged or derailed, all traceable to Melissa. "Gerald, if we hand this over to the board, she's done." "Not yet. If we go in now, she'll claim it's a smear campaign. We need her to hang herself publicly, with no way to recover." That's when I remembered something Martin had told me years ago during another case. There's no better witness than the one who doesn't know they're testifying. Melissa had a weakness. She loved the sound of her own voice. She couldn't resist bragging, especially when she thought she was talking to someone who agreed with her. If we could get her to talk about what she'd done, in her own words, we'd have. The opportunity came faster than I expected. The next morning, Melissa called a strategy session for our department, inviting only select staff. I wasn't on the list, but Gerald was. And Gerald had something she didn't know about. A pen that doubled as a high-quality audio recorder. Before the meeting, we synced our watches like we were planning a heist. Gerald walked in 5 minutes early. The pen clipped to his folder. I waited in the corridor outside, pretending to be on my phone. Through the thin wall, I caught fragments of her voice. Confident, smooth, dripping with that performative leadership tone she used when she wanted to impress. "Melissa, sometimes you have to take initiative. If someone else can't close the deal, you step in. You make the work your own. It's survival." A few chuckles from the room. "Melissa again. Elliot will survive. He's not the first, he won't be the last. It's how the game is played." Gerald told me later she even laughed after that line. The sound sharp enough to cut glass. When the meeting ended, Gerald walked out, his expression neutral. He handed me the pen without a word. I pocketed it and kept moving. That afternoon, I met Martin in his office. The audio was crystal clear. Melissa's voice carried every word of her own undoing. "Martin, this is gold. But if you want to make it stick, you need the right moment to drop it. Preferably in a way that forces the board to act immediately. The quarterly shareholder meeting is next week. She'll be presenting to the entire investor group." Martin's eyes lit up. And the AV feed is run from the same control room I used the other day." Martin leaned back, a slow grin forming. "Elliot, you're devious." The days leading up to the meeting were tense. Melissa avoided me entirely, but I could feel her presence in every decision, every email that came through without my name in the CC line. The company buzzed with whispers, some siding with her, others waiting to see who'd fall first. Gerald and I kept our heads down, sharing nothing with anyone else. The plan was simple. During her presentation, while she paraded my work as her own, the AV team would accidentally switch the feed to a video clip. The clip would be nothing more than the audio recording overlaid with a static company logo. No commentary. No explanation. Just her voice. Confess. The morning of the meeting, I could barely taste my coffee. The conference hall was packed, board members in tailored suits, investors in crisp dresses, middle managers trying to look important. Melissa stood near the stage chatting with the CFO like she owned the room. Gerald gave me a subtle nod from across the floor. Everything was in place. When the lights dimmed and Melissa stepped up to the podium, I moved to the AV control booth. The hum of the equipment was almost soothing, the familiar scent of warmed electronics wrapping around me. She started strong, her voice carrying easily through the speakers. Charts flashed on the big screen. My charts, my data, my forecasts. The investors nodded, some taking notes. At the 10-minute mark, Gerald's signal came through my earpiece. A faint cough followed by "now." I tapped the switch. The screen froze mid-slide. The audio shifted, and then her voice filled the hall. Sometimes you have to take initiative. If someone else can't close the deal, you step in. You make the work your own. It's survival. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Elliot will survive. He's not the first. He won't be the last. It's how the game is played. By the time the clip ended, the silence was heavy. Melissa's face was pale under the stage lights, her hands gripping the podium like she might fall. The CEO stood from his seat. "Melissa." "My office." "Now." She didn't move. Security moved instead. They walked her out past the investors, past the board members, past every single employee who'd gathered to watch the quarterly meeting. No handcuffs, no shouting, just the dull, echoing click of her heels across the polished floor, the two security guards flanking her like bookends. She kept her chin high, but her eyes were locked straight ahead. Not at me, not at anyone. The CEO didn't speak until the doors closed behind her. "CEO, we'll take a short recess." Half the room emptied to the lobby. The rest stayed in their seats, whispering. I stayed put, watching the empty stage. Gerald appeared beside me, slipping into the chair without looking my way. Gerald. Didn't think she'd go down that fast. That wasn't fast. That was years coming. He nodded slowly, understanding. By the end of the day, her profile had been wiped from the company website. An internal memo went out citing gross misconduct and violation of corporate ethics policies. No details were given. They didn't need to be. The recording was already making the rounds internally. At 6:02 p.m., my office phone rang. It was Martin. "Martin, they're offering a settlement, 6 months salary, plus reinstatement of all credits on the project, plus a formal letter to the board and the client acknowledging your authorship." "I and Melissa?" "Martin. Word is she's been blacklisted from the industry. No one wants that liability." I leaned back in my chair, running a hand over the smooth armrest. "Send me the paperwork." The next morning, the office felt different. The air wasn't lighter, it was quieter, like the hum an appliance that had finally been switched off. People stopped by my desk with cautious smiles, some offering congratulations, others just nodding in silent acknowledgement. Valera brought me coffee. "Laura, guess you won." "And it's not about winning." She tilted her head. "Then what?" "It's about making sure she can't do it to anyone else." That afternoon, the CEO asked me to join him for a private meeting. His office smelled faintly of cedar polish, the blinds half open to let in thin slats of sunlight. "CEO, you handled this quietly." I expected more noise. Noise doesn't change the truth. Proof does. He studied me for a moment, then said, "You're getting a promotion, director of strategy. Full autonomy. You've earned it." I shook his hand, but there was no thrill in it. Titles and corner offices didn't erase the months she'd spent undermining me. The difference was that now she couldn't touch me or anyone else here ever again. I didn't see Melissa again for almost a year. Not in person, anyway. One rainy Thursday, Gerald forwarded me a link to a local news article. The headline was small, buried under business updates and sports scores. "Former executive sues past employer. Case dismissed." The photo was unmistakable. The same steel gray eyes, the same carefully composed smile. The article detailed her attempt to sue another firm for wrongful termination. The judge had dismissed it outright. Gerald's note was short. "She's done." I closed the tab without reading further. Some evenings I still think about the morning she locked me out of my office. How certain she must have been. How much she must have believed I'd just stand there helpless in the hallway. She'd been right about one thing. I wasn't the first, but she was wrong about the rest. Because I was the last. Memorable lines from this story. "There's no better witness than the one who doesn't know they're testifying." That wasn't fast. That was years coming. Noise doesn't change the truth. Proof does. Reflective lines from this story. Some betrayals don't hit all at once. They settle in slowly, like dust after a demolition. The cleanest revenge is the kind you don't have to announce. Silence, when you've won, isn't emptiness. It's control.